Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill, where unfortunately again this week we don't really have much racing to look back over and to review, but luckily in place of that we do have plenty of hot discussion topics to cover. As well as that, we will be looking ahead to the Champion Hurdle. That's going to be our anti-post race in focus this week. Plenty of potential market movers, how we're playing the race at this very early stage, and any interesting bets that we may have lined up. As well as that, we will be looking ahead to the Christmas period, where we have the return of some top action. We had the big freeze, now we had the big thaw. Thankfully, we've got it just in time for Boxing Day and beyond. And someone who's going to be featuring in that top action is William Hill ambassador, as well as leading jump jockey, Sam Twiston-Davies. So Sam, great to have you with us. Thank you for being here. How are you?
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, a bit of a quiet period, but in good form. A little break last week, got away for a few days, so nice to be looking forward to hopefully plenty of racing.
Yeah, nice and refreshed anyway from the skiing trip, so I'm pleased to see that you're back with us anyway, back in old Blighty anyway, and fantastic
and
to
in
have
one
you
piece.
And in one piece, more importantly, exactly, which is the main focus for any of you lot going out there, I have to say. And James Mackie is also back with us as well. James, you're probably box walking by now because you've had such a lack of weekend racing, but apart from that, how are you?
Yeah, all good, all good. Obviously, like you said, next to nothing in terms of jumps racing was it last week, and even the all-weather couldn't even stand with some places. So hopefully coming up to the Christmas period, we'll have a lot of good action to talk about, and we will, throughout the show, be looking at some of the bigger horses that are running. Yeah, so looking forward to this show, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely so. And before we do move on with the show that you've just mentioned, Sam, something that we've done each week so far is we've asked our guests about their Cheltenham Festival memories, with this show being very Cheltenham Festival focused, looking ahead to it. Now, of course, you've had plenty of success at the festival yourself, going back all the way to dear old Baby Run in 2010. I think I've got that year right. But for you, what really sticks out in your mind is your favourite festival memory?
Yeah, your first one is always the one you probably remember most. As it's happened incredibly quickly. Imperial Commander had won the race before, so incredibly fond memories of that day. But probably, as in the aspect of a lot of it, the new one was Fantastical and Neptune, but the first really big one was obviously Dodging Bullets, his champion chase. That was just like something I'd never experienced. It was a incredible buzz, and then for everything to go smoothly, and then obviously naturally with a 2-mile chase, you need everything to go so right. You can't miss a fence, let alone an inch, so it's obviously incredibly difficult, but that'd be one I'll never ever forget and always treasure.
Yeah, massive. So, I mean, watch on a festival races go according to plan at the best of times. So, yeah, to relive that must be some feeling anyway. Now, don't go too far away though, Sam, because I need you for this next bit, because the focus is all on you now that we don't have the review of the racing from the weekend that was, because we have plenty of questions to have to ask you about horses that you were due to ride, as well as your dad was obviously due to run as well, Nigel. Now, the first horse I really want to ask you about is We've All Been Caught. He was due to run at Cheltenham last Saturday, a very exciting horse. Where does he go now?
Yeah, he's looking at the Cello, so racing Newbury, not too far away. The problem is he's only had one actually start for us this season, which is frustrating, but it's very much a point we want to get an idea of where we are with him. So if we want to be looking at kind of festivals later on in the season, we need to know, are we good enough to go and do it? So yes, he's been pitched in the deep end, but we felt we wouldn't really learn loads from going and winning a kind of a normal standard novice hurdle. So we want to actually go and take on some of the better horses and see if we're good enough to be dreaming big.
Yeah, exactly. And what a refreshing, nice attitude that is, exactly, to try and find out how good you are by taking on the good horses. So I'm glad to hear that he is high in your mind for that. And of course, the same day, we didn't get to see I Like to Move It, who was due to run in the International. What's the plan for him now?
He's got obviously a lot of options. He'll have an entry in the Christmas hurdle, but that's going to be incredibly difficult. And then the trouble is there's Haydock, obviously the champion hurdle trial, that's later on in January. He's actually in really good form, so we're kind of looking what is around the corner. So he could end up with a step up and trip in the rail keel at Cheltenham, trying a little bit further and seeing. But otherwise, it's very hard for him. He'll have to go back into a 2-mile handicap back at Ascot, which will be very hard. So it's very few options for him. So it is a case of juggling and seeing who goes where. And if the Christmas one ended up looking really hot and then there only ended up being a handful in there, there's still fantastic prize money. So it's just trying to make a bit of a plan when we see what's there and about.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, I mean, you've lost the contenders hurdle now, and then you've lost the international, and you are sort of starting to become a little bit limited, dare I say it, then with those types of horses. But I mean, he's a brilliant horse, isn't he, wherever he goes to, and always seems to be underestimated. So good to hear that he's in good order himself. Now, talking about Cheltenham races and Cheltenham runners, though, we did at least get to see some of those on the Friday before last. And starting with Master Chewie, I mean, he ran a really solid race, I thought, finishing second to a potentially smart one in a novice's hurdle. Were you pleased with that run, and what's the plan with him?
Pleased but frustrated at the same time. As when you're riding, it was very much a case of, I thought all to have to do is jump the last and we'd go and win. So then when you get beat, you're always a little bit frustrated, would like to have done things differently and tried something else. But I think the truth of it all is he's an incredibly strong travelling horse. He goes through a race very smoothly, very easy. He's got jumping is getting better. So now he needs one more run, and then he'll look for the what is the Betfair at Newbury. So he will literally find a nice novice hurdle for him somewhere, get his head in front, and then hopefully then we can look at that and dream big.
Yeah, exactly. Get that confidence booster then again to just get his head in front, but a work in progress. You know, he'll come good at some point. It's just when that's going to be exactly. Hopefully, touch wood anyway. And under supervision, though, you also had him finishing third in the Premier Handicap chase behind Eva's Oscar. I mean, good to see him bounce back to form on that reappearance, Sammy. So thoughts on him and his plan, please?
Yeah, it was an odd one because he looked like he was going to be absolutely stuffed at one point, and then he stayed on really well for third. Dream will be the Grand National, but he's going to need to go up a bit to get in. So hopefully we'll have to find a race somewhere that we know he can go and be really competitive in. And he's going to have to win and then hopefully be competitive again to actually get in the race. So the Grand National is the long-term aim and target, but he's still got age on his side. So end of the day, he's going to be a lovely long-term, long-distance chaser for the future. So we'll look forward to it and just see where we can find the right race at the right time.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Sorry if I've suddenly gone into darkness, by the way. My light has just decided to completely pack up there. So it's not as though we've just recorded this in the morning, in the evening, just so you know, yeah, that there isn't much continuity about this. This is just the
case. William Hill sent me a ring. I look like, I don't know what I look like, whether I'm on shiny or what. So.
Beautifully illuminated, Sammy. His skin is glowing there.
It's a bit odd. Yeah.
No, exactly. I wish that I had invested in a higher price one anyway for this. And then horses that we didn't get to see at the weekend that are still very interesting though. I mean, Good Boy Bobby, he was either going to go for the Tommy Whittle or the Ascot Premier Handicap chase. So obviously didn't get to go to either. Any future plans on him?
Yeah, he'll go back to Wetherby, where Boxing Day where he won last year. Hopefully he's in very good form. Everyone's very happy with him. Ideally, 3 miles deep ground suits him well. And I guess obviously long-term target again, he could probably have another look at the Grand National.
Yeah, exactly. So another one for the national, goodness me. Yeah, I mean, he's just such a wonderful horse, isn't he? But like you say, he's going to have lots of firepower then going to Aintree, hopefully. And the last horse I just want to ask you about that we didn't get to see, but was really looking forward to, Idalco Biu, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly there, was entered in the grade to Kennelgate Novices Hurdle at Ascot, but he's a perfect 2 from 2 in his career so far and was impressive on that stable British and Rules Davy. So what can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he's in good form. A little setback after his first win, but otherwise he's in really good form. He's going to have entries here, there and everywhere. Ideas, probably more like an EBF qualifier type of race. Handy to have him qualified for Sandown, because then if he doesn't jump up to where we want him to be, that can always be a nice race for a horse of kind of his nature. So that's an idea. But literally, he's going to have entries here, there, and everywhere, and find one which looks the easiest.
Yeah, exactly. And then find one that's going to suit him the best. But he does look a very exciting proposition, clearly highly enough thought of. So the last thing I just want for you for this section, Sammy, is I need some horses to follow, please. So first of all, a novice chaser in your mind to follow for the season.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So at the minute, we're not actually got loads and loads of them. But for us, obviously, a horse we hope will be winning soon is Super 6. He's not going to end up at any of the big festivals, but he's jumping fences. He's taken to them well. He's travelled well around Cheltenham last time, then just petered out. So hoping to see better from him as one of ours, just because he's jumping fences the first time. And at one point, he looked very, very smart. So hopefully looking to see better again, and hopefully he can end up being reasonably well handicapped.
Oh, lovely. Make sure you make a note then of his name in your notebooks. Novice hurdler to follow.
Yeah, so we're very lucky. We're blessed. We've all been caught. He's obviously one of our stands out. And then if it was well, like, he looks very good. So between those two, they're two to hopefully follow throughout their careers and jump fences one day.
Yeah, exactly. We've got who we were just mentioning previously, definitely a horse to follow. Well, handicapped horse, I know that's a tricky one for you to have to answer here, but what do you think potentially has more mileage in them, Mark?
There's a one, I couldn't believe he hasn't won yet, but he's only, I had the couple of starts for us because we've been waiting for the ground, but he's not one I actually ride, but Sergeant Wilson, one of Simon and Isaac's. He's a beautiful horse. Eddie Edge won his bump on at Taunton. He bolted up that day. He's just been a little bit of a work in progress. His jumping has been a little bit sloppy, and then he was beaten by two very good horses first time, and then at Newcastle last time bumped into one. So we hope handicap has been very fair, and there'll be a race up his sleeve very soon.
Nicely done. Sergeant Wilson that was, wasn't it? Yeah, so he
yes.
Potentially will. I can't believe he hasn't got his head in front. And would he therefore be your dark horse to follow, or would you have another horse of that category?
Yeah, I think him very much so. Just because his profile, he looked very good in his bumper, and we haven't really seen the very best of him yet. So I hope he is one which could really end up being quite good. But otherwise, apart from him, one I'd ride myself. I'm really looking forward to riding Master Chewie again.
Yeah. Well, we really like Master Chewie. Just have another go at him again. Then I think he's a horse that we're all going to be following throughout the entire season, such as the ability he's shown so far. So thanks so much for that, Sammy, for indulging us in all of those quick fire questions then for you. But again, don't go too far because I have more for you still to come. Because of course, the big news then this week, or as of yesterday, even because we have had a whole load of news stories breaking this week, was the retirement of Davy Russell, and what a career he had. Now, Sam, just to throw it back to you, of course, you would have ridden against him plenty, but where would he stand in the upper echelons of the weighing room, basically, with Davy Russell in your mind?
Yeah, so me, Willie and Ryan Hatch were riding out together this morning. I think I was something really silly then. I think it said me and my brother Willie, and Ryan Hatch were riding out this morning.
As you were well wrapped up.
Yeah, they didn't need to be so much this morning. It was warm. Yeah, so very much we were actually having a discussion over where would in the top three. So for a real argument between obviously Richard Johnson, Adrian McCoy, Ruby Walsh, and then obviously Davy Russell. And obviously we all had very different opinions on it, but without any of it, he's absolutely outstanding rider, incredibly competitive, and very, very rarely made a mistake, incredibly strong the back end, tactically astute. He just had everything to be an incredibly good jockey, hence why, in whatever order you do put him, he is always going to be a top three.
Yeah, exactly. He is, isn't he? In the majority of people's minds, I think you'd be hard pushed to find someone to push him out of that top three. And have you got any particular race you remember riding against him as such, of any time where you thought, oh goodness, okay, that's why he's as good as he is?
He'd always, every now and again, he'd come over for a perf or something, and you'd think you'd go and got the race won, and out of nowhere he'd appear on your boot, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again. But no, just there was no stand-up memory, but just you always could watch Davy around Cheltenham, and it was always a pleasure to watch. And you think as a young jockey, and even as a jockey now, you'd watch back some replays of years, and you're thinking, why did Davy switch in there, or why did he go out? Because naturally you think Cheltenham, sometimes it's always easier to switch out because you're almost a bit more guaranteed to run, but then you take the brave man's route, switch in. It's just an incredibly brave thing to do, and something that he was so well measured in the split-second decisions he made, which probably made him so good.
Yeah, like you say, it's all the difference, isn't it? Those split-second decisions that you can make, and someone like Davy Russell just rarely seem to have got those wrong. So thank you for those lovely words on Davy Russell anyway, Sammy. And another discussion point that has been hot this week, probably at the other end of the scale now, that has divided opinion to a massive degree, has obviously been the whip debate. We heard very eloquent and very well considered points from Andrew Thornton on last week's show. Now, your own opinion, I know that you must have some, because of course you are directly being affected by these whip reviews. You're going to be the person who's going to have to put these into practice. So from your point of view, what do you make of these and the way that the discussion is moving at the minute?
Yeah, I think the discussion moving forward is positive. Obviously, as we've heard and voiced, it's very hard for a lot of jockeys to use the backhand correctly. So with it coming in the period of time it was concerning. And then actually even just the use of itself. But I wouldn't be fantastic at the backhand. I wouldn't be something was taught particularly well to use. You're always taught to use the forehand properly, and you'd use it in a way where you could always reach the rump. So it's something then when you do put into practice the backhand now, it's amazing how quickly it became aware that actually a lot of us were getting pulled aside and being told, well, if you'd have done that in the new stick rules, you were getting XYZ amount of days. So obviously there's a lot more intelligent people that will speak about it a lot more eloquently, but at the same time, I can understand the problems and the reasons we need to make some changes and have these conversations. But I do hope in going forward that everyone will see a little bit of sense, and we can just maybe not so much talk about the forehand and backhand, and then very much just talk about how we can make the little changes maybe in the number of strikes or something like that. And so we are going forward, but then maybe not in the areas that they've probably highlighted so far.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you just say, because obviously part of the discussion now is why have the jockeys decided to speak up now? But if you just said that you're being pulled aside at the minute, being told you would have got a ban if you had hit the horse in the manner that you have just done. Has that been the catalyst for why people are deciding to speak out now?
Yeah, I think it's very much a case. There's a one that sticks up in my head. The other day, Adam Wedge gave a horse a beautiful ride at Leicester, and the stewards came, pulled him aside and said, if you'd have ridden that horse exactly the same ways under the new rules, you would have been, and he was mostly backhand that day, and they'd have said you'd have been banned. And we has watched it, and it was a beautiful race to watch, gave it a lovely ride, and to any of us who thought it was perfect. But apparently, according to them, it would have resulted in him getting in trouble, which just, for us, that was a key moment where I actually sat back and thought, gosh, if that is seen as an infringement on the rules, then we're all in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can understand therefore why that, like I say, it has been raised now, because you are getting to actually realize how these rules are going to be implemented in the real world nowadays, rather than just speaking about it. So hopefully it does all continue to go in the right way. On a different note now, Boxing Day we have coming up. And of course, we have a very big question to ask you about, but we will come to that in due course. So do stick with us with watching and listening to us, because we will be getting into that big question. You know what it is, but stick with us anyway. But Boxing Day in general, Sammy, how has it been for you in previous years? Is it something you look forward to? Do you even get to enjoy Christmas Day beforehand because of it? What is Boxing Day to you?
Yeah, it's obviously a day where you very much spend the day with the family, always looking forward to Boxing Day, but just actually take the couple of hours out of the day to relax, enjoy yourself. You do always hope you never have a light weight on Boxing Day, because that is the Christmas killer almost. But I'm very lucky, obviously loads of family around me, so back up to mum's, have obviously dinner up there with Willie, obviously aunties, uncles, and then very much pop down and see dad and all his family later on. So, but actually, first and foremost, get all the horses ridden out in the morning.
I was going to say, you're missing a key detail.
Yeah, we'll have make sure all the staff are okay and everyone's enjoying their morning, and get done as quickly as possible. First and foremost, make sure the horse is done as well as possible as well.
Yeah, so you do give yourself a bit of a chance to enjoy it at least anyway, so that's good.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Just trying not to eat too much turkey, but quite lucky in with what we'll talk about later on, and being at Kempton, you're not so much worrying about doing the lightweights, thankfully.
No, exactly. You're at the right track. I mean, the right races there where, weight doesn't really come into it. Exactly. Get yourself into that position, basically. We don't have to worry about how much you eat on Christmas Day, according to Sam there. Right. Up next, we are talking all things Champion Hurdle, where the race is currently priced up with William Hill as follows. So Constitution Hill as the 1-3 market leader. It sends State Man at 6-1. The reigning champ Honeysuckle 7-1. Last year's Triumph Hurdle winner Vauban is 12-1. Shock Hassan's Grace winner Tia Hoopu 16-1, and it is 16-1 bar. After that, with a whole load of horses that don't look like they're really going to run in this race anyway. So James, you've been sat there nice and patiently and quietly for a while now. It's your turn to take it away though, please, with your thoughts on the Champion Hurdle.
Yeah, definitely. I was just sat there taking notes and all what Sam was saying. So yeah, that was brilliant to hear. But yeah, now on the Champion Hurdle, and look, Constitution Hill, he's a horse probably to you, to Sam, to everyone who loves racing. It's probably one of their favourite horses to watch. Maybe not from a betting perspective because he's so short in most of his races, but as a horse and as a horse lover and watching him, I've never seen anything like it personally, because he looks an absolute freak, doesn't he? And this is why he's the price of 1-3. If you look back at the start of the season, even after he won the Supreme, he was already quite a short price for the Champion Hurdle. He was 7-4 at the start of the season. He went into shorter to about 5-6. And then obviously when Honeysuckle did what she did in the Hatton's Grace and not actually win the race for a fourth time when everyone thought she would have, he went into 1-3. He's not a backable price. For me, I think he's probably the most biggest certainty at the festival. Everything goes right for him. He's just an unbelievable racehorse. But now, because we're a betting show, we want to talk about where the value is. he's probably not a bet, is he, for many people, unless you want to put him in your big multiples and stuff like that. So you look down further in the market, and he has got to take on some really nice horses, hasn't he? But at the same time, he's a bit of a freak, and he will just go and win. He'll be sure to only after Christmas Hurdle if he goes and wins again, looking like he'll take on Epatante, and which is harsh for her. She's a brilliant horse as well, but he's just far too good for her. Stateman's obviously the second favourite, isn't he? Around 5-1, 6-1 in the market. He's a fascinating horse, isn't he? Because what Willie Mullins did with him last season, off a marker 141 in the county hurdle. Now he's off a marker 164. To have that much in hand, and everyone seemed to know about it over in Ireland because the price got absolutely slashed, didn't it? And he went on to win very easy that day. The form of that race obviously worked out well with First Street coming out with the Jerry Filden and been a really nice horse going forward. So I think definitely he's probably one of the best chances for Mullins at this stage. We've got to talk about Honeysuckle as well. If you'd have said to me, should be 7-1 for a champion hurdle at this time of the year, you'd have gone, what is going on? Because this horse has done absolutely nothing wrong, really. Yes, got beat for the first time in how long? A few weeks ago at Fairy House. But I don't think she ran a bad race at all. I think if you actually look at Tia Hooper, he's got cracking form around Fairy House. He's got cracking form first time out. It was more of a stays race. Now she's getting on slightly. Does she just need that sharper 2 mile to go and show her speed? And if you look how she glided into the race, she was brilliant, but she just couldn't find that staying ability. So I wouldn't rule her out, but we've got the problem as, does she go for the mares? What do you want to do at the Cheltenham Festival? Do you want to go in a champion hill and try and win it for a third time in a row? Or do you want to go for a mares race that's easier on paper and come away with another Cheltenham Festival win? She owes nothing to the sport, but at 7-1, she is interesting in the each way market. But for me, and if I was going to put up an anti-post bet for this race, and I'd either play each way or without Constitution Hill, and that would be Vauban for me at around 12-1. We haven't yet seen Vauban, and the record of the younger horses going into the champion hurdle isn't great. But getting the negatives out of the way, if you look at what this horse has done, it's just absolutely frightening from perspective of pace. I was at the Dublin Racing Festival when we saw him, and it was after he actually lost to Pied Piper that day. Pied Piper turned out to be quite a nice horse, but the speed he's shown coming around like the bend at Leopardstown, and to go and jump the last and take win from Phil Dore. Phil Dore's an absolute stayer. I thought was absolutely superb. Yes, we haven't seen him yet this season. He went on to win the Triumph Hurdle at Cheltenham, then went on to Punch Stand and won there. He won back-to-back grade ones. I just think because he was the champion 4-year-old last season, going to be 5 this season, he has got slight inexperience compared to him, but he's got a lot of unexposed talent still to come, I think. And it's just can he show it in open company? I think Constitution will be far too good for the field, but I think this will be the best of the bunch. And at 12-1 each way, and I think at the moment it's a cracking bet, because I think the next time you see him, he'll win and he's going to go much shorter. So I think if you can have a shop around, he might be 9-2 as well in some markets without Constitutional. I think that's good value as well. I think he would be my play. But look, it's a fascinating race, the champion hurdle, from the perspective of what's going to happen in behind Constitutional. But and if there was to be a shock, I think it would be probably one of the biggest shocks at the Cheltenham Festival in 2023, wouldn't it?
Oh, massively so. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be really quite something. And if he manages to break the old hoodoo of his age, I mean, Esquire Dallin was the last one to do it, wasn't he? And he was an absolute freak of a horse anyway. So if he's able to do that, then he does look a very fair price to be able to go and do that. But like you say, Constitution Hill probably is, though, the banker for many at the festival. And you mentioned then the each way possibility about Honeysuckle. 7-1 looks an absolute gimme of an each way, but the risk you're taking with your anti-post bets is that you're going to lose that. Issue then does go to the mares hurdle at this very early stage, of course. Now, Sam, throwing it to you, I see the aforementioned I Like to Move It is in there in the betting and entered up. He's currently a 50-1 shot. Are we underestimating him at that current price, given that a whole load of horses above him in the market probably aren't even going to run in the champion hurdle?
Yeah, well, it's the dream to end up there, but the problem is you're going into a champion hurdle which looks incredibly difficult. You've got Honeysuckle, who beat Epatante as she did last year, looking incredibly impressive. And then you've gone and watched Constitution Hill then do what he did to Epatante up at Newcastle. It was just breathtaking. So I think wherever we end up, whatever we do, we go there and dream and hope. But the truth as it is, he's in there. I think it's obviously 50-1 sounds massive, but at the same time, you very much look like you're playing for places.
Yeah, playing for places. But that is, for him, though, the ultimate aim of where he's hopefully, if all goes well, going to end up, is it?
It's the dream. If he could win on the way, it'd be nice. But if not,
Yeah.
then obviously I might have to have handicap conversations and such like that. But it's never easy in these positions because he's incredibly high. He's a highly rated horse now. He's not the extent he's your mid 160s, he's a high 150, mid 150s. So you're needing to jump up, best part 10 to be competitive, but at the same time, try and carry that around in the handicap is incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah.
Sam, sorry, just Sam, on that, when he was in the Greatwood, obviously he went on to win unbelievably well. Were you expecting that sort of performance, or was he working well at home before that? Like, because the way he won that race was unbelievable.
We hoped more than anything, because obviously he's still a young horse. He'd been working well. He was very fit and well at home, and it was very much that race was purely telling us what we were doing this season. So we didn't want him not ready. He had to be ready. He had to be as best we could possibly have him, and it answered a lot of questions for us. He was very impressive. He jumped well. He jumped a little bit big, but he jumped well in himself. And actually, the future he could go over fences. But at the same time, I think it is a case now of actually we're delighted with that. It's proven we're on the right road, but at the same time, and it's a season where it looks incredibly difficult.
Yeah, no, it does definitely so. But like I said, I mean, that was some win, wasn't it? In such a muddling race as well, with all of those omitted hurdles and everything such, like for him to still go and pull out that manner of a victory really was quite impressive. But yeah, a horse that I think we're all going to like to keep on the right side of, and especially because they play a song when he walks it back into the Cheltenham Winners Enclosure. Who doesn't like that? Great.
It doesn't always get a great reception, but I think it's quite entertaining, really.
I think it's brilliant. I think every horse should have like at least a tenuous link to a song for when they come back into the Winners Enclosure. His is obviously very obvious anyway. Right, now we're on to the big question that you have all been waiting for, that we can ask Sam about now, looking ahead to the Christmas period. And of course, the big race at this time of year is the King George. Now, we know, Sam, that you have had great success in this race, great success for a certain set of owners as well, who are hopefully going to be enlisting you aboard Hitman. What can you tell us about the ride potentially on Hitman in the King George?
Yes, well, fingers crossed all being well between now and then. Obviously, watched a lot of his Hitman's videos. It's very kind of the owners. Obviously, been very lucky for them before it in the King George Punchdown Gold Cup. So it's very kind of them, firstly, to show kind of faith in me and support me. So it's an incredibly lucky position to be in. So going to go have a sit on him this week, make sure everything goes smoothly, do some schooling, piece of work, and then very much all fingers crossed. Then obviously both horses get there and Harry kind of goes the other way, and then we can have a bit of fun come Boxing Day.
Yeah, and you say you've looked back at the videos of Hitman. What has stuck out to you as sort of any positives, negatives, any way you'd prefer to ride him if obviously the opportunity then does come to fruition?
I wouldn't want to give too much away, because obviously I think that's the kind of nice thing in this position. I can watch his videos very much as a not an outsider, but I can watch it from a perspective I wouldn't have been before. So although I've always watched him, it's always been on the aspect of watching him, not riding him. Whereas now I'm watching it in a different kind of way, where you're looking to think, hey, maybe what can I add? What can I do differently? I thought he was very impressive at Haydock, jumped fantastically. That looks to be one of his biggest assets. So I think it's very much a case of, yes, he is a young horse, but he's really going in the right way.
Yeah, hopefully so anyway, and hopefully he is going the right way, because we know that Paul Nicholls thinks an awful lot of him, and it would just be brilliant. And Sam, in terms of, we talked about your success in the King George and how well you've got on in the race in the past. Is there a way of riding this race, or what are you sort of trying for? Again, not trying to give away your secrets here, but what are you sort of trying to focus on in the King George?
I think it's very much ride the race that's in front of you. Believe in yourself, the horse you're on. I was very lucky in that I've ridden some very good horses in there. I rode Politolog in there, for example. Like, was a fantastic jumper, good traveller. Alpha Off years and years ago. So it's very much a case of just finding a slot you're comfortable in, enjoying yourself, letting things happen if you think you're going quick. Don't be afraid to slot one or two further back. But at the same time, you're having to remember it's Kempton. It's not easy to make ground, especially with 5 fences down the back. So you want to just be in a position where you're always on coattails and keeping the right ones around you. And then very much kind of riding your own race from there.
Yeah, and that all-important rhythm to get into, not being too far off the pace. Yeah, so we know we're going to get hints about how Hitman may be ridden then throughout this. Now, James, just to read through the betting there very quickly, because Long Press is currently the 7-4 favourite, Brave Man's Game 2-1, Hitman, who we've just been talking about, 4-1, Envoy Elen 6-1, Noble Yates 8, Frodon, the other Paul Nicholls potential representative, 14-1, Protector at 14-1, and it is 20-1 bar. So Hitman 4-1. What do you think?
Look, I'm not against Hitman at all, because I absolutely love the horse, and what he showed last time out was absolutely brilliant. I think 4-1 is probably a fair price about this horse, because you've got to go and see, even though Kempton, well, Sam will know better than most, it's a sharper track than some usually. So the 3 miles that round there won't probably be as difficult if you go to Cheltenham or stuff like that, because if you look at what Brave Man's Game and maybe Hitman, that's exactly what they'll probably want. So if you go to another track, they maybe wouldn't want it as good as what they're going to have as Kempton. But for me, looking from a different angle, not a riding angle, from a punting angle, I think it's very, very tough. It's a race I love absolutely every season. And obviously we've seen the Irish over the past few years come over and have a go. And this year their best chance looks to be Envoy Allen, doesn't it? Envoy Allen was the horse that everyone's been talking about over the last 3 or 4 years. I think currently around 8-1 in the market. But because of the little hiccups he's put in over the last year or so, he probably is not going to get the credit he deserves going into this race, and that's why he's 8-1. He's run last time at Down Royal. We saw him back to his best in the Grade 1. But again, you look how good is that form. I think personally it's the Englishes to lose this season. I think Brave Man's Game and Hitman have got great shouts. I think the market's got it bang on with Brave Man's Game just being ahead of him in the market. Paul Nicholls just knows how to win this race, doesn't he? He's done it with how he's done it with like the likes of Frodon. No disgrace to Frodon at all, but compared to some of the horses that probably should be winning this race, Frodon sometimes isn't the same caliber, is he? Which is harsh to say, because he's a great horse, unbelievable horse. But to get a horse like Frodon to win a King George, it just shows how good a trainer Paul Nicholls is. He'll have Brave Man's Game, he'll have Hitman, absolutely ready for their life for this. But saying all that, if I had to have a go at this stage, I think, and maybe quietly swayed by Andrew last week when he was talking about Long Press, but Long Press to me is a serious horse. Not that the others aren't, but I might be getting it wrong. But for this, I might be getting it wrong for this race, because Brave Man's Game and Hitman might just have that little edge. Coming with Paul Nicholls' record, now we'll get him that fit. But for me, I think Long Press will turn out to be the best horse in this race throughout the season. Whether that's going to be shown straight away in the King George, or he might show it later down the line at Cheltenham in the Gold Cup, or with any other races he goes on to do throughout his career. But I just think Long Press has got the most class when it comes to jumping, when it comes to staying. And I know you don't need to stay as well in this race as other races, but for me, Long Press, I know it's shortening the market now. It's 7-4, and it was way bigger because he was very undecided whether they were going to go for this race. But from a class angle, I just think Long Press probably is the right favourite now, and I'd like to see him go and run well. It's a cracking race. It's very, very hard to predict from a punting angle. I think it's one of the toughest I've seen near the top for a long, long time. But if I had to play it now, Long Press would be for me. Sorry, Sam, I've got to go against you on this one.
Andrew Thornton's got in your head, James. You let him get to you.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Exactly. Sam, you needed to have made a stronger case there for James back around then to side with Hitman. But yeah, we still got enough time for that to change at least between now and then. Anyway, now we also have the added addition at Kempton with the Long Walk Hurdle now, which has obviously been switched over as well, where we're expecting the usual protagonists to be turning up here, including the possibility of Holstone, Sammy. So is the old boy likely to run?
No, I think it's very much up in the air. Obviously, there'll be other options for him as well. I think it'd be kind of entries that are very, very nearby. I'm not to say tomorrow, because I don't. That's when this will be aired. But so we'll look forward to the entries and then very much make a plan. Obviously, you've got Champ in there. Obviously, a lot of good horses. So I think it's very much a case of just wait and see and hope for a bit of luck, and some soft ground would suit him well.
Yeah, exactly, wouldn't it? Just, I always refer to him, no offense whatsoever, this isn't a pure compliment, as a tractor, because he just has that knee-old action on him. He just plows through soft ground, doesn't he? Absolutely love that horse. But yeah, we are recording this Monday afternoon though, so we will obviously have more of an idea of this race then in the next few days. James, how are you looking at this race, or anything else at Kempton?
Yeah, we had a chat, didn't we? I think it was, when was it? Last week's show, the week before, on this race when it was supposed to be. And I still stick to what I say then. If they turn up, I know it's a different track, and I know there's probably going to be slightly different conditions, but I only think that's going to help who I like, and that's Paisley Park. Paisley Park, I spoke about him. I just absolutely love this horse and what he's done over his career for the connections and how he just never gives up in his race. To watch a horse hit that flat spot and think nothing's going to happen, and then to be absolutely flying like a train late on, it's just brilliant to see. If I was a horse owner, like at the top level, he would be exactly the horse I'd want to own because he's brilliant to watch. And I know he's 10 years of age now, but if he does get that bit of rain that's going to come, it's only going to help him more than it's going to help Champ. I think Champ, you saw him at his best first time out. He's always best fresh. Yes, he's a brilliant performer. And he got given a great ride by John Joe Neal that day. And I'm sure he will again. But for me, 5-2, I think in the current market, Paisley Park, it might be slightly shorter. He would be my bet in this race. And I think he's out the top two there. And I think any rain that comes to Paisley Park, he'll absolutely love it. Look at what he's won throughout his career, like 3 cleave hurdles, a stayers hurdle, long distance hurdle. And he's won this race twice, albeit being a different track. But I think he'd be okay at Kempton, no problem. And I think 5-2, he's the play in this race. But again, it's a fascinating race, isn't it? And I'm just so glad he got moved over so we get to see it, and especially on Boxing Day.
Yeah, exactly. One of the very few races to have actually been switched out as well. But I'm delighted that they have, for all that Kempton's going to be a very different test then for these stayers. But yeah, it's great. It's going to be round whatever it is now, 4 or 5. I don't even know what we're up to now between Champ and Paisley Park. But you're siding with dear old Paisley then to reverse that form with Champ from last time out. Now, also, James, it's not just Kempton that we have, of course, post-Christmas, because Chepstow have their big race, of course, with the Welsh National. So who are you looking at this stage, looking ahead to the 27th of December? And have you got any early plays?
Yeah, I actually quite like one actually in this race, and it's not the biggest price in the world. I think about 7-8 to 1 in the market. It's the Galloping Bear. This horse, I've actually liked this horse for this race for quite a long time. And if you look throughout his career over the last year or so, he almost looks like to me he's been planned to go for either a Welsh National or like a Surrey National or a Scottish National down the line. So I don't think he'd probably ever be good enough to win a Grand National, but even though you've got to be a very good horse to win a Welsh National, I think it's more of you slog as you the ground's normally really soft, and you've just got to. If you look last year, there's only 4 or 5 horses that actually finished, so that showed. I don't think he'll be ever like that. Well, we hope not anyway. But this horse, that any rain would fall, he'd absolutely love it. He's only on a mark of 140, and I think going into this race, that's very workable for him. Last season, he was a winner at Lingfield when stepped up in trip to 3 mile 5. That was on heavy ground. That was actually in the Surrey National. That was off a mark of 135. He went up to a mark of 140 for the race at Haydock, which is actually sponsored by William Hill. It was the Grade 3 Grand National trial. That was atrocious conditions as well. I was actually there that day, and how the racing was on. All I did got rained on all day, and then it stopped for a bit. But the ground was like atrocious. But that's exactly what this horse wants. If you actually look back since, he's been disqualified for a banned substance. But obviously, I don't know what's gone on there. You can only go off what you read. So if on the basis that he actually ran to the ability that he should have, he'll be absolutely perfect for a race like this. He's been seen once more since. That was a prep run over 3 mile 1 furlong at Carlisle over hurdles, just a pipe opener, just to get a run round, set him up perfectly for this race. And like I said, for mark of 140, I think the Galloping Bear's got an absolutely cracking chance. I know it's at anti-post stage and we need to see him actually get declared, but around 8 to 1, I think in the market, I think he's got a cracking chance of Galloping Bear in the Welsh Grand National.
Yeah, he must do, mustn't he? Because I mean, rarely has a horse been any better named, has it? Because that's all he does is continue to gallop 8 to 1 then. And yeah, it was a shame about that disqualification. Maybe not for Sam, because he ended up winning the race on Bristol de May, being promoted to first. But it was a very mundane substance that you use day in, sort of day out in training. But of course, with the fantastical headlines that capture people for clickbait, it made it seem like an awful lot worse than it actually was. So yeah, no disgrace there whatsoever for the Galloping Bear. Now, Sam, I mean, Fantastical, he's in the Welsh National as well. There's also some other horses you've previously won on. I mean, Sam Thomas's horse, Our Power, is in there as well. So anything that you're looking ahead to, or do you even know where you are at this stage?
Yeah, very much the case, because there's a very good Kempton card same day. We're going to have entries everywhere, so it'll be a case of kind of sit back, waiting until we know a little bit more on what's going to happen. And you see with this forecast, what it's been like, you never know what it might be. But I think it's very much a case of kind of when you're in this lucky position, obviously we've lots of horses going here, there and everywhere, and lucky to be supported by some very good people. So you kind of just wait to see where you can get the best book of rides.
Yeah, exactly. See exactly where it's going to end up then on the 27th of December. Now, James, lots of top Irish action, of course, over the Christmas period as well. I mean, we have Leopardstown on the 26th, 27th, 28th and 29th as well, just for good measure. So I'll just let you take the floor with this one. Any Irish action that's taken the eye for you?
Yeah, so when looking through, obviously, I could talk about so many different races here, but with a lot of Willie Mullins, like for example, he's got that many horses that could run over this Christmas festival at Leopardstown that you don't actually know where each of them are going to turn up. So I tried to avoid going it from an anti-post perspective, but I think one Willie Mullins horse that should be turning up, and it's in the Savills Chase, and it is Statler, who obviously won the National Hunt Chase at the Cheltenham Festival last season. But this horse is around 7-2 in the market at the moment for the Savills Chaser, like anti-post. And he's got to take on A Plutard, who's got to come back to form. Conflated's obviously in there as well. And this race every season, I think, was won by Galvin last season, wasn't it? And he's in the race again. And hopefully Manella Indo might be running as well. So it's all the best horses that are going to be aiming to go to the Gold Cup. And it's sort of like before you have a Dublin Race Festival, you have the Irish Gold Cup as well. But this is the plan, isn't it? Savills, Irish Gold Cup, and then you go to Cheltenham for the Gold Cup. And I think for a lot of them, with all the racing that's been called off, you maybe haven't seen some of them too early. Statler's one of these cases. I think he's got no problem going fresh. We haven't really seen him yet this season. So I think he's been primed to go for this race. He's got no problem with staying. You look at his stamina. He showed it in the National Hunt Chase. In his pedigree, all it is stamina. And you look at some other horses who's related to, they're winning over trips now. If you go back to his hurdling career, he was a very smart hurdler. He was fourth in the Albert Barley in 2021. And a lot of people really fancied him for that, but he was just beat on the day. If you look at his runs over fences last season, leading up to the National Hunt Chase, he was actually unbeaten, wasn't he? Because he went to Fairy House, then went to a grade 3 at Naas over 3 mile 1, and he just looked like he was getting the hand things. The penny was dropping more and more each time he was jumping fences. And then when he went to Cheltenham, display he put on, Runwell Fred was backed off the boards all over, anti-post and before, for that race. And he went on to win by 8 lengths. Great ride by Patrick Mullins, and was just cool. Didn't need to do anything too over the top, and won the race really nicely. The thing you've had with the National Hunt Chase over the last few years is, are the horses from there going to either go to a Grand National or a Gold Cup? And you saw with Galvin, he was probably going to go to a Grand National, but went on to run really well in this race and went to the Gold Cup. And obviously it didn't work out, but still ran well. This will be a race to find out whether this horse is a Gold Cup horse or a Grand National horse. And for me, I'm going down the side of he's going to be a Gold Cup horse. So I think he'll go on and go win this race. And I think he's about 20-1 in the market for the Gold Cup now. I think he'll be much shorter come the end of this race. And he would be probably one of my best bets if going for Leopardstown at Christmas.
Oh, I like it a lot. So would you be back in for the Gold Cup now then with that price? Do you think it's going to be slashed?
I think, we're recording Monday afternoon. We've just seen Galopin de Champs go and win. Brilliant performance over 2 mile 4. Absolutely brilliant. And he's probably the most likely winner because what a superstar. He's in the category of Constitution Hill, isn't he? He looks a bit of a freak. But for me, you've got to try and guess what Willie Mullins going to do with his horses. Allaho's going to try and win the Ryanair for the 3rd time. Is he turning up? If he's not turning up, Galopin de Champs could go for the Ryanair instead. He probably wasn't bought to be that horse, but what does everyone want at Cheltenham Festival? It's a winner. So if Galopin de Champs was to go to the Ryanair and Statler was to come, I think he'll go for the Gold Cup regardless, but Statler would become more of a betting for me at the prices. But I also am a big fan of Noble Yates. So it's a Gold Cup. We'll discuss it later down the line in a few shows. But at this early stage, he's a horse that I'm looking at for the Gold Cup at the price he is. So if I was going to back him, I'd back him now. But if he goes shorter, I probably wouldn't back him at a shorter price. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think he's definitely got a big chance. Definitely got a big chance in that race.
Yeah, plenty of food for thought then from James. And James, just before we wrap up, anything else from Ireland or over the Christmas period you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, there's one more. Well, obviously the Christmas third of Constitution will win that, but it won't be a betting price. I think you could probably play the 1-2, couldn't you, with Epatante as well, because they'll just come home chasing each other. But another nice bet comes from Limerick, actually, and it's in that Faheen Novice's Chase. Yeah. And it is Jerry Colon near the top of the market. This horse has been pinpointed for this race, and he looks a bit of a superstar as well. And beaten on all 6 starts to date. Won a 3 mile point to point at Linkstown in March, then went and got bought by Rob Core for 240,000. We know he spent some money this season as well. And look at some of the horses he had come out. Absolute Notions, Hidden Valley Lake. He spends the money, but they seem to be performing down there. I think this is another. If you look last season, when he was sent, he won 2 bumpers. He was sent hurdling last season. He was only actually seen twice. So he's been kept for his chasing career for me. He made a cracking chase debut at Fairy House over 2 mile 5. I think he'll want 3 miles in time, but I think if you also look at Limerick, if he does get the rain, he's a bit of a slog. He won't mind those conditions. And I know he's near the top of the market, and there could be some nice horses actually running that race. But Jerry Cullum, I think, could be a class above, and I think he's a horse to follow for the rest of the season because I think he's really, really smart. So, yeah, Jerry Cullum, Limerick would be one of my better bets as well at the Christmas period at this stage.
Yeah, like I say, at this stage, for he Novice Chase there to hopefully continue that unbeaten streak then for Jerry Colon. So yeah, plenty to look forward to over the Christmas period. So that's everything from us from this week's show. This was episode 3 of the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill. But before I let the lads go, after all of their hard work, I'm just asking for one last favour, please, from Sam. Sam, if I had to nail your colours to the mast, one horse to follow for the rest of the season, can you just give me one name?
Obviously, he's well touted now, but we've all been caught. He's the one, not just for this season, but for seasons to come. He's a smashing horse, a very impressive individual to look at. And from what we've seen so far, he's only but pleased. So fingers crossed, all safe and sound. Whatever he does this year will be a bonus, but we're jumping fences next season will be one for us.
Yeah, definitely a horse that we've all been very interested in for this season. We've all been caught your horse to follow for the rest of it. So thank you so much to the lads for all of their time and all of their hard work on this week's show. Thank you so much for watching, and we will speak to you again next week.